Hey, friends. So today on the Music Retail Podcast, I have two of my dearest friends, Jennifer and Lyndon Lantz. We became friends a couple of years ago. I think it was NAMM 2021. This was the first NAMM after the pandemic, and it was the one that was held in Nashville. And to have the story make sense, I should also mention that the Lantz's own Bandwagon Music and Repair in Nashville, Tennessee. And Lyndon reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, if would you be up for meeting for maybe bourbon and cigars, and we could just kind of talk a little bit about the music industry." And my reply back to him was, "Did we just become best friends?" And basically, yep, that's what happened.
Totally.
The man knows how to speak to my heart for sure. That's my love language, is bourbon and cigars. So,
amen.
Yeah, so we got together then, and then we've just kind of we've seen each other at NASMDs and NAMM shows, and we just always kind of seek each other out whenever we go to these things. And then just recently, was this last week or 2 weeks ago, that we descended on Nashville?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yes.
I think it's 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks now. And so me and Tristan Reek from Brass Bell, and EJ Dombrowski from Jim's Music, and Amanda Reuter from Ernie Williamson Music, we all came to Nashville to check out what's going on at Bandwagon. And there's so many great things and such a great story that I can't wait to share this episode with everyone, to hear the Bandwagon story and background experience. You guys have had so many trials and tribulations, but you've also had just tremendous amount of success. And in spite of what our friend EJ says, you've been so successful in spite of doing everything wrong, which is not true. You guys have done everything, like all of us. You've done some things wrong, but you're figuring it out, and it's going to be such a great story. So anyway, welcome to the Music Retail Podcast, Jennifer and
Thanks
Lyndon
for having
Lantz.
us.
Thanks.
So let's start just first with some of the basics here. Let's get into a little bit. Just tell me your background story, the origin story, what you were doing before you got into music retail, and then how that led to music retail.
So basically, this all came out of both of us were teachers. I taught band for 10 years. Jennifer taught choir for 8 years. Yeah. And when we had our first child, she ended up staying at home and been a stay-at-home mom and did all that. And while I was teaching at the last job that I was at, the repair thing, I didn't even know was like a legit industry. And that's kind of where we hang our hat, is on the repair side. That's a big part of what we do. And so while I was at the school, we had a small budget. And we had every kid in 5th grade and 6th grade had to take band. And so you had 200 kids, and I had 200 instruments and $5,000. And there just wasn't enough money to fix the instruments and keep things going. So I tried to figure out what I could do to help. And I found the program out in Colorado called COMIT. And they did like week-long training classes. And figured out, well, hey, I can go out there and take a week of clarinet and learn how to do clarinet stuff. And then I can move on from there. And so that was kind of how I got into the repair side. I did that over the course of, 5 or 6 summers. And the best part is that I had all those guinea pig instruments sitting right there that I could work on. Right. And if I really screwed it up, I could send it off to the repair shop. And right. It was probably about a year before I ended up leaving the teaching industry that I looked at Jennifer and I'm like, look, something's got to change. We got to figure out something else. Like I was enjoying the teaching. I hated everything else. Mm-hmm. And so something had to change. And so I was like, I wonder if you could do this whole repair thing. Like, is this a real job? Can people make money at this? And took the plunge and said, yeah, let's go for it. And that's kind of where Bandwagon started from. The original plan was to do the traveling trailer, go around to schools and do that. That's why we were going to be a bandwagon, that you jumped in the bandwagon and we traveled around to you. That rapidly changed. While I was teaching, I was also teaching lessons at a local music store here that was in the process of closing. And we were going to be acquiring them, and we were starting to build out on a place. We were going through it, and they ended up turning around and saying, nope. And we had already signed a lease. We had put everything together, and they pulled the rug out from under us at the last minute. In the end, it was
absolutely.
It was the
amazing.
first trial.
Yeah.
It was the first
Was it the
scare.
very first? I don't know.
And it was actually a great thing for us in the end, because it helped us be able to turn around and focus in a little bit more on who we wanted to be, which was a band shop,
Right.
focusing in on the band stuff. And so for the first 3 years after we started, you're looking at employee 1 and 2, and then we had employee 3 and 4, which are our children, for the first 3 years. And that was kind of like how it all started. We were doing all the bookkeeping and all the road stuff and all the repair and all the retail and everything, and making it all happen that way. So it was a lot to take on right at the beginning. And to be honest, as 2 music education majors, we were like, oh yeah, sure, like just open up something and it'll be fine. And
Yeah, it can't be
business
that
just
hard.
happens. Like,
Yeah.
it can't be that hard.
Yeah.
It is that hard.
Holy
It is that
cow.
hard.
It's really
Yeah.
that hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we didn't know what we didn't know.
Right.
Yeah.
And Jennifer, your background's vocal music, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So got two music people here. And how long have you guys been married?
18 years last month.
18 years. Gotcha. That's amazing. Okay. And we've got how many kids and their ages?
3 kiddos. Joseph is 13, Lois is 11, and Lincoln is 4.
And then Bandwagon is how old?
8.
8.
Yeah. So these
Third
kids have
kid.
more or less basically grown up in this business.
Joseph's the only one that has any pre-shop memory.
Right. Yeah. And how many memories does he have before 8 years old? Like,
Well, he's a kid
Well,
with
that's
like
true.
a steel
That's
trap
true.
memory.
Yeah.
So he has quite a few,
yeah.
but they're
he's,
mostly of like daddy teaching,
Yeah.
he's
like
going to go
going
for
daddy
therapy
school.
to deal with the trauma of his birth, probably. You know,
Absolutely. He's that kid.
He's totally that kid.
He's got a unique mind for sure.
But he also remembers like demo of the space, because it was an empty shell when we moved in. It had been a bank and then it sat empty for years, and so he actually remembers like taking the hammer to the drywall and some
Right.
of that stuff. So it's kind of fun that he remembers some of the very beginnings.
Yeah,
But
that's
The
fun.
other 2 won't.
So it's so interesting that you didn't, like, most people, if they want to get into repair, they're going to go like work for an established music store doing that. Why didn't you choose that option to just be an employee at a music store?
Well, I mean, I was teaching.
Move to Missouri. Maybe
Right.
move to Missouri and
Right.
be,
Yeah.
be an
Do
employee
it that way. Yeah. I didn't know you existed at
Yeah.
the time. But,
It's not too late.
right.
Not too late. It's very much too late.
Yeah, absolutely it is. So part of the reason why, both of us met at Lee University, which is down by Chattanooga. We're in Nashville, Tennessee. And Jennifer's parents, Jennifer grew up here. She's one of the unicorns of Nashville, that born, bred, and raised Nashville. Nashville's become this like everybody moves here place, but having the unicorns that were born here and going through is kind of rare. So Jennifer's parents actually live 10 minutes down the road. And so both of us were fortunate while we were student teaching. She actually got a job at her former high school, or where she went to school, while she student taught. So she came back here to Nashville, and that was why we ended up landing in Nashville.
Right.
And it just worked out that way for us. And as we have continued to move forward in this industry, Nashville's just a unique market in a lot of ways. It's such a unique market in the fact that we got so many people coming in from all different areas of life. You have the road guys that are doing everything. You've got the guys that are in the studio. You've got the students that are starting off brand new.
And when you're
And
saying
so-
road guys, you're meaning like on tour,
Musicians on
Yeah.
the road, yes.
guitar
100 dates
players,
on the road,
like those
Yeah.
kind of
the
road
horn
guys,
all those guys.
not
yeah.
people calling on schools. Yeah, yeah.
No.
right.
I'm talking the guys that are making it happen, playing on the road, touring,
all the
doing
time.
all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so for me on the repair side, I didn't know. I mean, I'll be honest, there's so much of what we've done that I didn't know. Like,
Mhm.
I didn't know that you could go work for someone else. I also saw that there was a need in Nashville for a repair shop. There was one other repair shop that was in town. And I actually took my personal saxophone to them and had them do a full overhaul on it, and went back and was like,
Yeah, he was so disappointed. This was you.
it was just one of those,
He was like,
like,
why did I pay so much money? It's not
this
even
was-
that much better.
it isn't even
Yeah.
like they didn't do a great job.
They don't.
They don't exist anymore. They closed and all that. But,
Clarify.
it
Name
was
the
one of
tech personally who did it.
Exactly.
We were not actually, but
So it was one of those where I was like, well, if this is what's out there, I know I can do better than that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what kind of led to it. And I had so much, I mean, I had 5 years worth of instrument repair that I was doing for the school. So the school side, I kind of had figured out. I mean, like how to, the quick fixes on flutes and clarinets and trumpets and cleanings and blah. I had all that stuff figured out. So the school side of it, I had no problem of. I'll be honest, the first time I had a Mark VI show up on my bench that wanted an overhaul, that was a stressful event. But it was such a great thing because I knew all the basics. I knew everything that was going on. So yeah, it took me longer, but that's okay. As a repair tech, if it's your first time doing it and it takes you longer, that's fine. Let it take longer and learn from it, because the next time it's not going to take as long. And the next time it's not going to take as long.
Right. And what's interesting is I don't know if you can even count how many Mark VIs you've done at this point in time. And in so many ways, that feels like yesterday that he came home and was like, oh my gosh, I got a Mark VI and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. And like freaking out. But it also feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
Because we're not that old.
Or when you get the first, this happened 2 weeks ago, right before you guys came in. I get a call and it's Alanis Morissette's trumpet player. And they're like, hey, look, we got a show tonight and we have an hour. Can you get this trumpet fixed? We ripped the lead pipe off. Like, okay. Now, that stuff doesn't faze me anymore. Yep, cool. Let's bring it in. We'll make it happen. And it's just the reps and it's doing it and doing all that. And that's where I really love, we have 2 other repair techs right now. And I love the fact that I can kind of instill that in them too. Like, look, I want you to learn. I want you to have those opportunities. And you know what? You're at this level, but I'm going to give you this one. And it's okay if it takes you a day to do this one and ask questions, because I want them to learn from that versus me turning around and just doing it for them. Then all of a sudden I'm taking on more work myself.
Right.
So I want them to be more successful and help and coach them through that versus me having to do all of it when those things come in. The goal is not to be on the bench 24/7.
Right.
The goal is to grow a business and do things like that. So
you got to like in the E-Myth Revisited, which is, one of my favorite business books. One of the more popular business books, but that whole idea of you got to go from working in your business to working on your business. And it can be very difficult, especially when you're getting off the ground. You're basically working in your business all the time. But as you start to succeed and are able to bring on more staff, you're able to work more and more on it. So another thing, you've kind of hit on this, but just to sort of stress to the viewers, because I think, of course, everyone's familiar with Nashville. I think everyone's familiar with its rapid growth and everything like that it's experienced over the last decade plus. But the thing that's kind of interesting about it, and I had observed this for myself right around the time that you guys opened your store. At that point, the time that you opened your store, there was kind of a lack of a good school music dealer that was in Nashville. It was being serviced through Music and Arts, which national chain, competent, good at what they do, but usually in all markets, there's also an option of a local independent place. And the local independent was coming out of Memphis, basically. And
at that time they weren't.
Oh, and so even Amro coming out of Memphis. So there was just sort of a lack of school music dealers that, I think maybe some that had existed had folded up shop and left, lack of repair shops. I noticed the same thing. I'd gone to, I can't remember now what I was in Nashville for, but I was there for something. And just as I often do, I was like, well, I want to go check out music stores. And I'm curious what the band scene is like. And so looking around, I just thought oh my God, there's nothing here. And I'm familiar with there's school music programs in and around the Nashville area, especially, as you get into the suburbs, there's some very, very good music programs. I thought where are these people getting their instruments from? And I literally for the next couple of months, it was turning in my head of it's about 7 hours from Springfield, but
right.
God dang, that would be that'd be a really good opportunity.
You can come visit anytime.
Yeah. Well, now I'm glad you guys are doing it. You've removed the temptation. I didn't need the temptation, and you guys successfully removed it.
I'll be honest. So a lot of our success has come on accidental, didn't know positive things. So when we opened our business, yes, Music and Arts was huge. What people don't usually know about Nashville is that there was a place called the Band Room, Harley's Band Room. Harley's Band Room, Harley Tatursky, who started that, amazing guy. But this was like the place. He had 3 or 4 locations in Nashville, and he was the guy that did all of it. And Harley ended up getting in early with music and arts. And so their road guy, which I'm drawing a blank on, it'll come back to me, kind of ran for 30 years here, and he kind of had it all. So that was why there was such a low turnout of other places, because they had it all. They'd been around for a long time. And the year we opened was the year that road guy retired.
Gotcha.
Which opened up some doors for us, which was really awesome, which I didn't know at the time that was going on. We just got lucky that that's what happened.
Yeah.
And he worked in schools for the most part that didn't have road reps that came to visit. Either they were too far out, or he worked in a pretty elite private school for a while that just, it wasn't a place that people would come. Nashville has a large variety of school options, particularly like within Nashville. And so there were definitely sectors of schools that weren't part of the route, if you would.
Right.
And so that was just not a thing he had really experienced that much in our town, and saw that as a real need.
Yeah.
Yes, that was where we kind of started at. Nashville's also unique. We have the CMA Foundation that's right here. There is a ton of money that has been filtered through the CMA Foundation, through Metro Nashville schools, to the point where kids in Metro Nashville, they're getting provided instruments from 5th grade through 12th grade.
Right.
So ironically, a very little portion of our actual business is coming from Nashville
itself.
Nashville Public Schools. Yeah.
And most of ours is coming from all the surrounding areas. Now, we do a lot of repair for the Nashville stuff and things like that, but as far as rentals and things like, it's very little of that comes from Nashville itself.
We experience that too in other markets that we're in or have been in. And, you know, on the one hand, everybody loves the idea of all kids being able to do instrumental music and all that kind of stuff. Like, I definitely get that. But I'm firmly on the side of, like, if there is no financial investment from parents and families, then there's just not going to be the long-term commitment. And I have not seen many quality instrumental music programs where there's no kind of investment, meaningful investment from the parents. And honestly, anymore today, rentals are so affordable. Like, it's just not, it's not a huge sacrifice to rent a quality instrument from a legitimate school music dealer. I mean, I think, you know, there's most places, there's options starting around $20 a month, or, you know, in that $20 to $30 a month range for most instruments. And it's a very affordable means to acquiring a quality, serviceable instrument that's repairable and plays properly, and that you can end up owning. And I think there's some amount of that investment that is an important part of our success for new musicians, because today, with kids are so accustomed, we're all accustomed, frankly, to be able to pick things up and kind of learn things quickly and things like that. But music isn't like that. Music, for most of us, it's a multi-year commitment just to, you know, be halfway decent at it. And you need a little bit of that pressure from mom and dad, or mom or dad, saying, hey, I'm paying good money for this. Like, you're going to get in there and practice. And when the parents aren't paying anything for it, they don't, there's not that commitment on their end to make sure that they're getting their money's worth. So
the other end of that is that we have found is that when a kid's been playing a box Strad that was just loaned to them for 7 years, then they think they're going to go off to college and be able to play a good quality instrument, and they walk in expecting to be able to buy a trumpet for like $200.
Yeah.
And we're like, not a box Strad.
That doesn't work. Yeah.
And so Lyndon's actually even sat down with the CMA Foundation and just kind of started conversations about, like, what could it look like, you know, whether we're involved or not in that, you know, conversation, but what could it look like to kind of have families do some kind of investment like you're talking about, or even if it's not financial, if there's a way that they can be fundraising, if there's a way that they can be giving back or something, so that the kids don't just quit when they have to turn in their instrument, you know, because that we've actually seen a couple of kids come through that they would have joined their college band because it's an instrument maybe that the college wouldn't have provided necessarily,
right?
But they've been provided all the way through. And so they get to the end and they're like, oh, we didn't realize it would cost that much. And if they'd been making a small investment over that time, then they could have, you know, been.
The goal is to create lifelong music makers, right? It's not to create middle school music makers or high school music
Right.
makers. Like, we're trying to create
Right.
lifelong music makers, and you can't be a musician if you don't own an instrument. Like that to me, that's just so obvious. We worked at something with a school district in Kansas, because this happens a lot in Kansas for whatever reason, where the district wants to provide the instrument. And we noticed immediately, like, there's just some issues with that. Quality of programs usually suffer. Usually when the school district provides the instruments, initially when the instruments are acquired, they're in good shape. But then over time they get old, and most schools have a pretty poor track record of getting obsolete inventory off the books. And so you end up with, decades old instruments that have far exceeded their life, that are still on there, still being issued, still being put out. And so there's a lot of problems there. So we started talking to them about, hey, what if you, instead of doing that, thought about that annual budget that you're spending on acquiring instruments and instead use it to rent instruments from us? You will always get the right instrumentation. So you can, if you need more flutes this year, you can always get what you need. They're always going to be like recent model instruments. They're always going to be serviced and ready to go, because we'll include our service plan with it. And then the thing that we worked out for them was, we'll even allow the money that you've paid towards like this particular rental. If the parent wants to take it over, then the school will have made that first year of payments, and then the parent can take it over from there. Which would incentivize ownership, because they're basically getting a couple $100 off the rental of this instrument. And they were really excited about the idea of their students being able to own good quality major brand instruments that are in good shape and well maintained, and then could get essentially a discount on being able to rent to own those. So that's, we've using strategies like that. We've been pretty successful moving that around. But also the other side of it too, the thing that it's, you won't believe how many music educators have zero clue. Well, you guys will, because you were former music educators, but they don't understand how the business works. And so when I meet with the directors, I just give them a quick synopsis on how we exist. We exist because of rentals. And if you take those rentals away from us, if you value having a local music store, if you value having school service, if you value having sponsorship for your events and other stuff, if you value having a repair shop, like, these things exist because of the rental program. Like, if you take that away, then it goes away. And then if you don't have that support, think about how that's going to affect your program. And so we have to really work together as a community to keep our businesses alive, so that we can support this activity that we all love and hold dear. So anyway, I'm going to get off that soapbox. I want to jump back real quick to our founding days here. So Jennifer, tell me, like, you've got, young kids at home, and, and both you and Lyndon are working in school districts, and he wants to open this music store, take this risk. Like, what's going through your mind at that point? Are you of the mindset that you're just like, I believe in him, whatever, he'll make it all work, it'll just be fine, we don't have to worry about it?
I'm excited about this answer.
Yeah. Or is it like, are you nuts? Like, our kids have gotten accustomed to eating at least every day, sometimes more than once.
I think there was some sort of combination of that, really. I mean, we made an intentional choice as a family for me to be a stay-at-home mom and to live off of one teacher income. So we weren't rolling in it at the time then either. And it was gradual enough that I think we both just kind of like kept stepping out on faith of like, let's try this thing. And what about this thing? And what about this? Because when I knew that where he was at wasn't going to be like a forever thing. And the further he got into teaching, the more discouraged he was by just essentially like all the admin part of it and the red tape. And
So then I opened a music store where there's no admin or red tape.
Yeah. So life of luxury and ease
exactly,
at that point. Yeah.
He loves to teach, and he really loves to work with people. And it feels like that gets harder and harder, particularly in the arts, because it's just not, and the school he was at wasn't recognizing that as a real educational part of their curriculum. It was just kind of, he was told he was an experience, which I saw.
Like, check the box. We've offered fine arts. Check.
Yes.
Yep.
And he had just gotten his master's in pedagogy and conducting. Like, I saw how discouraging that was for him. And so when he got real excited about repair, it was like, okay, let's try this. So it was like January when he originally opened Bandwagon Repair in like 100 square feet in the back corner of another music store's stockroom, like this much space.
Right.
But it was like, okay, well, you can in the afternoons and weekends, you can go, repair a couple of little things and let's see how this goes. Next thing I knew, there was a bathtub in the garage. And we were talking about because we have 3 bedrooms in our house, and we're talking about putting the 2 kids in one and making the 3rd bedroom like a repair shop type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then next thing you know, the place he's working at is like, hey, maybe y'all want to buy our business. And so then we're looking at buying a business. And then that all fell through, but we'd already signed a lease. So it's just like, we're just going to keep stepping through these doors and see what happens. I've said that to so many people. It's like, God closes the window, whatever, the doors and the windows open. None of that really applies here. Those more like magical tunnels from Rainbow Road on Mario Kart or something. Sometimes you fall off the edge and sometimes you zoom to the next spot. You never really know what's going to happen. But it was just kind of more, I don't know. I feel like we've always had sort of a team attitude of like, you know what, we feel like this is the right decision. I mean, like homeschooling is another example of that. Like we both taught Lyndon can tell you, like he went from rural nowhere school where he literally backed up, like the school's parking lot backed up to a tobacco smoking shed,
Mm-hmm.
like really rural.
Mm-hmm.
And, to like metro, like
inner city,
like if he didn't have to break up a fight or get cussed at in a day, it was a good day.
Mm-hmm.
To like super elite private school. And after all of those teaching experiences, he was like, that crazy idea you had of homeschooling our children, that seems like a good one. But also that means I'm not working for a salary anymore. And so now my job is very different and I love it. I'm thrilled. But in the same kind of way, it's like, okay, this is the decision we've made as a team. How do we make this work?
Right.
And so I feel like the shop was a lot like that. It was just like, okay, we're just going to kind of keep walking down this path. And, there were definitely times where it was like, we could lose our house. Like we could be homeless if this doesn't work. And we didn't take a salary for
But you could live in the shop.
3 years.
You could live in the
shop.
Yeah. I mean,
but if the shop failed, then we wouldn't have a shop or a home.
Yeah.
And
there's
so
always
like,
that.
My parents don't live that far away. Maybe we could sleep in their
They're
garage.
10 minutes away. Yeah.
That's
you
right.
can sleep with grandma and grandpa.
We
We
can sleep
could
in
go to their house. It'd be
garage.
fine.
It would be fine.
Yeah, they would have loved it.
They would have
extended
not
slumber
loved that.
party. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
They would have not loved that. So I think it was more of just kind of like, let's see where this, and I took on part-time jobs for the first 4 years that we were open so that we would have something coming in
to eat.
Because our children do like to eat. So does my husband. It's a
Yeah.
thing. They were pretty small. I cloth diapered them, so I wouldn't have to buy diapers.
Yeah, when they're that small, they don't eat that much.
They don't eat that much.
Yeah,
it's fine. Now we have a 13-year-old boy, and he eats all the things.
Yeah. Fortunately, you guys have been successful now, so you can afford it. So
fortunately, I'm not worried about having to sleep at grandma's house.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what each of your day-to-days look like and what you're involved with. So Jennifer, what's your role in the business? What kind of things are you handling?
So my official titles are HR, lessons, and marketing-ish kind of. And then picking up the pieces for whatever else needs to get done.
Of course.
Kind of events-ish type stuff. Like when we go out and do stuff, I'm always kind of the back end of organizing a lot of that kind of stuff. Some communication with different things. It's evolved a lot through the years. It used to just kind of like when we were the only ones, when we had no employees besides ourselves, I literally would homeschool the kids from the front of the shop and go in when he needed to make calls on the road or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't spend nearly as much time in the front as I used to. I used to kind of be backup or only retail person. I loved that. I spend most of my time when I'm in the shop. I spend most of it in the office these days, which it's an interesting place. My mom's an accountant that I actually asked her one year in college if she could just use last year's W-2 because I couldn't find that year's, to which she was like, "Are you my child?" So I've come a long way from that.
Oh my gosh.
Being the official check writer and, running payroll and all the things. It's, there's a lot of roles that I kind of fill that are just because I'm capable and I can learn it and I just make it happen.
Yeah.
I actually started college with a communications minor. That's just kind of I wanted to do music ed and communications. I enjoyed the PR part of things. I did a PR internship when I was in high school. And so interesting how all the little pieces of our lives have come together in this whole package. So I do a lot of the sort of onboarding and hiring process, and you know, all the dealing with employees, making the handbooks and doing the stuff and time off and payroll, and so
putting together flyers, rental flyers, the stuff for the lesson program,
that kind
like
of
you're
thing,
just
all
kind
the
of
social media stuff,
doing all that stuff.
Yep. So, but I'm in the shop at least twice a week in person. At home, I'm just kind of work in the cracks. You know, we do some math and then I check some emails and do some lesson stuff. So, each day is a little different for me. I mean, we have a schedule, like we're always in the shop on Mondays and Thursdays, and then sometimes we pop by on other days when needed. But for the kids, it's the one thing I have discovered as we've gone along is I used to just feel so frenzied, I guess is the word, like particularly when I was working other part-time jobs, because I'd have my brain at this job, I'd have my brain at I'm trying to like plan lessons for the kids, I'm trying to like answer the next emails about lessons and whatever. And so in some ways I do kind of try to compartmentalize when I can. You know, it's helpful to be like, okay, on Monday afternoons and Thursday afternoons, we know we're always going to be at the shop. Like the kids don't even ask anymore. It's not like, are we going to the shop today?
Right.
It's like, yes, it's Monday. This is what we do on Mondays.
You guys at the shop, you've got kind of like what you call the family room. So it's you know, it's got a kitchenette and it's a place. There's a couch and there's a place where the kids can kind of hang out and be, and you can
do school
if you need to, and all that kind of stuff. Lyndon, what does your day-to-day look like?
I'm kind of like the face guy, I guess, for the most part. I'm there every day. My role has changed in the last probably year. A lot more from I was always out front, sitting at the bench, repairing, doing all that type of stuff, to in the last year, it's been a lot more of like I'm trying to be more of the manager and the boss, and versus the guy running everything. And so right now, a lot of my day is, you know, doing emails and communications, checking in with all the employees and, hey, what's going on with you today? What can we make, you know, here's what the tasks are for the day, and let's see what you got going on here. Or I'm trying to empower my employees to be able to take on those tasks, because the more tasks they can take on, the more I can do on the backside to help grow the business.
Right.
And that's in the last year, that's been my biggest focus. What can I do to help grow the business? It was a realization about a year and a half ago that, like, okay, we've got 5 employees that rely on us, plus us. And then we've got 14 lessons teachers that are relying on us as well. And all of a sudden it just became like a huge, like, oh, if this doesn't happen,
it's not just us living in our house.
It's not us.
Yeah.
Now, granted,
I didn't live in their house.
Job. It's a different animal.
Yeah.
But
there's more invested in our
yeah. But still, there's that responsibility for the people that you work with every day, and a responsibility that you want to be able to help provide for their future, help them achieve the things that they want to achieve, and to have a good quality of life. And I mean, I totally feel that. I mean, as our company has grown and grown over the years, I definitely feel that. I feel that pressure of like the people that are here. Like we've got, you know, they have to have a place to be, a place to live. They've got to do something that's meaningful to them. They've got to do something that compensates them fairly for what they can do. And like that can be a lot of pressure, without a doubt.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of my days spent doing that. I put out fires. I feel like that's a lot of what I do. You know, this thing comes up and I got to take care of this or whatever it is. And the repair things that pop in out of nowhere. And it needs to be done right now because they're going back out on the road. Primarily my repairing now is those guys. Hey man, I'm off the road for 48 hours and we go back out for the next 3 weeks. Like, could you knock this out for me? Yes, I'll do it. And then I'm there till midnight, 1 o'clock. You know, it is what it is. But that's primarily where I'm running my repair side now, is a lot of that type of stuff. I'm doing more of those, which has been great because my other 2 employees have been able to handle the day-to-day, which has been great. But also there's times where they still need help too. And
Yep.
I want to be there to give them that help whenever I can. Coming up to this back to school season, it's a lot of communication with all your dealers and getting the care kits and the reads and doing all that. And to be honest, I'm not a numbers guy. I'm a big picture. I like to, like you, I like to imagine, I like to do all that. And when you guys were down here, it was like, oh, I didn't know this information that you guys were looking at and going like, how did you not know this? I'm like, I have a music education degree. Like, I don't know. But digging into more of the reports and aims and understanding our business better and being able to predict a little bit better, going to NAM educational clinics and all of that type of stuff. Like I had no clue how far off we were with stuff, but being able to go to NAM and NASMD and some of the financial things and whatever all that we've done,
Yamaha Financial Advantage that they do with Freeman Canterbury and with with Daniel Job and
and
that's
where they take you to Vegas and put you in a casino and talk about your accounting.
Talk about how to be financially smart.
Irony.
It is.
But for me, I didn't initially. I was ordering. Oh man, there's a deal. Let's go ahead and get 100 of them. Well, I didn't realize that 100 of them was a year and a half supply.
Right.
And now I'm realizing like, okay, wait, we need to bring this back. We can't order a year and a half supply. We need to order a 1 month supply and order in smaller chunks. That gives me more financial advantage to do the other things that we need to do.
Yeah.
And again, I this is all stuff that I feel like I've learned as we've gone through. And I'm so thankful for the education side that things like NAM has and the things like NASMD has through the clinics and whatever, because golly, man, the amount of knowledge that we've gained from those two organizations alone has been unbelievable.
Yeah.
But then running into people like you and, you offer you cigars and bourbon and all of a sudden you get, a lot more knowledge.
That's
cheap.
Right. Well, not that cheap.
It depends on what's
pretty good bourbon and good cigars. So
yeah. But then you get
cheaper than an accountant at least. So.
Well, that's another story.
Oh, talk about trials and tribulations.
Yeah,
you want me to throw one in?
Yes.
Our first accountant, so we hired them because they had worked with another music store, which again, they also don't exist.
Our daughter was in a dance studio and across the hall was an accounting firm. And I was like, how hard could this be?
Yeah.
And the mother-in-law was like, I ain't doing it.
Right.
So I was like, sure, why don't you guys do it?
Yeah.
They had worked with another music store. I say that in quotes because it was like this big and it doesn't exist and whatever. They did such a bad job, because they did a kind of our first business thing. So they sort of set everything up.
Yep.
We had no clue what we should be doing. They did such a bad job that they actually put our tax refund in someone else's bank account. That's how bad they were.
And she came to us with a personal
check that day,
ending it to us.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
So
that was fun.
I feel like we're still we've been Daniel's now our accountant and like he still finds things sometimes just like what?
Yeah. We both use Freeman Canterbury and we both use Daniel Job. And once you get if you're like serious about being in the school music business, especially music retail in general, but school music business, Freeman Canterbury is just like they're just the best to go to. And it's because our business is just unlike other businesses. First of all, many of us, we basically have like 4 businesses in one. We've got retail, we've got rentals, we've got lessons, we've got repairs. Those are really 4 separate entities that are all operating together. The tax implications and ramifications of how you handle and treat your rental program is absolutely critical. And most accountants don't deal with like rentals in that way, so they're not familiar with it. They're used to doing rentals with short-term rentals like equipment rentals or long-term rentals like homes or something like that. So they're not familiar with that. They don't understand the way that we depreciate our assets and how we may depreciate them on our financials, but that doesn't really mean that they're worthless. And so trying to explain all that to your bank can be difficult when you don't know all that. So this isn't, I guess it is a plug. This is a non-paid plug for Freeman Canterbury, but having someone who specializes in that and knows it. And for those of us that use AIM, to have someone who's also knows how to, can navigate you through using AIM is just such a tremendous resource. So yeah,
Speaking of
shout
trials
out
and
to those guys.
tribulations, AIM is one. No,
but
but also kind of. So we started there. Okay, so we
started with the AIM software.
We started with
because
AIM.
everyone said use it.
I remember
even when you're itty bitty, like have hardly anything to manage, you start with the behemoth. And to be clear, the AIM, first of all, they've specialized in and I think hired a specialist to design the world's ugliest front end, I think. But the software is very powerful and very inclusive of all the things it does. And because of that, I think is why there's just a big learning curve there.
Yes.
So I'm grateful for the software. I'm glad we have it. Like but it's a lot. I do wish it looked better and was a little faster and a little easier to use. So we
started with V11 in our living room because we built out our store during the summer of 2016. And the place next door was actually empty, and our landlord let us have the key because they had slat wall up. So we would go to the space next door and practice our slat wall displays and figure out how we were going to lay everything out. It was not air conditioned and so in the middle of the Nashville summer, we would just sit in there. We drank so many Sonic Ocean Waters that summer. Hey kids, we're going to get Sonic and go hang out and play with slat wall. And then we would come home and we had the label printer in the middle of our living room, and we would attempt to run AIM and figure out what this was all about. And like you said, we didn't have our own rental fleet. We did lessons on Google Cal, all the things. And it was too much for us when we first started.
Right.
And so we left and tried to do something else. And we did something else that was very successful for a few years, but couldn't handle the rentals. And once we had our own rental fleet, we just couldn't find anything else that came close to AIM.
Yeah.
And so then it was coming back in at V12 and starting over, retraining everybody. And
that V12 upgrade was obviously, any of us who've been through it know, like it's a very difficult upgrade. And then also just using the program was almost completely different than what it was before. It was very challenging. But you're right. It's such fantastic software. If you're someone that if you're doing retail sales and doing inventory tracking for that, if you're doing repair, want to be able to track your repair histories and repair services. If you're doing rentals, need to be able to track all that. Like to have one piece of software that does all that, and that at any given moment in time, you can print out an accurate financial statement, assuming you're maintaining it is a real benefit. And a lot of the other reporting, which incidentally, for those who don't know, about most of the financial reporting that is in AIM was developed by Alan Friedman. So that's why sometimes you go to Alan's sessions and he advocates, these certain benchmarks or whatever, and then you run that software. It's like, oh, these numbers are all right in here. Like, well, that didn't happen by accident. And it's really fantastic.
It is huge. The reporting side of it is one that we just keep diving into. But understanding how important it really is.
It's a beast to tackle. And I've had the opportunity to work with some smaller and kind of up and coming stores, and they always ask me the same thing that you guys well, I hear we should be using AIM. I'm like, no, there's two of you. Like do you have a full-time office manager? Then no, you can't. There is just so much work to stay on top of that software when you're just starting out that it makes more sense to piece together some other options to kind of get through it. But once you get to a certain size, it does become kind of the default standard, I think, for good reason. So we kind of we go through all these issues, figuring out that not all accountants are created equal, what software to use, getting into the rental program, that had to be kind of a difficult thing, because I think for those people, people often hear about how profitable it can be to be involved in school music rentals, and some of our top dealers in our industry are dealers that are primarily focused on school music. So we often hear that as a place to be, but I think a lot of people get intimidated because they may not have a lot of band knowledge, which if you don't have that it can be a tough. I don't know that I would advocate getting in that space, because there's people with lots of band knowledge that will probably run circles around you. But there's also the repair. I've got to be able to fix all this stuff. And so usually those two facts alone make people choose the affiliate market, being an affiliate for someone else, let someone else handle that. But you had the repair background, so you're able to kind of like do that. But then the next big hurdle for everyone is financing it, because these instruments are expensive, and the cost to acquire them is high. Because we buy good school music dealers like Ernie Williamson and like Bandwagon. We buy quality instruments, and the wholesale cost of those quality instruments is not cheap. It far exceeds the price you'd see for inexpensive instruments on Amazon. And we get that, we buy all that stuff early in the year, and then we condition it and get it ready, and then sit on it all through the year, and then we put it out for rent in the fall, and we get a couple $12 maybe for these really expensive instruments per month, and it takes a long time to get that money to kind of cash flow, and it can tie up an enormous amount of financial resources. So how did you guys get into the rental program and be able to finance it yourself?
I want to say Lyndon made a really smart decision right off the bat that I didn't maybe understand was a thing, which was we were an affiliate for someone else. I won't say names because I don't know if we're allowed to say names. We did we sign one of those NAM agreements?
You can say names.
It's okay. He's purposefully chose an affiliate that didn't have a non-compete, because there are quite a few
you can get out
affiliates where it's like, you can't do any rentals or whatever for a year, 3 years, 5 years. They're, different contracts or different things. And and we, for the most part, had pretty good success with them for a while. They were not based where we were, so they had to ship everything. And so occasionally, we'd have to wait a couple of days for them to ship something. But obviously we took care of all the repair in-house. And they kind of credit us for that. And then they wrote us a check for our portion, our little commission each month or something. Mm-hmm. But so that kind of got us started into rentals, which gave us, okay, let's see, this is how we do this. Or, gave us kind of a glimpse into how that would work and how that would work for us specifically. And then.
So again, I didn't come from the music industry side. So I didn't know what you were and were not supposed to do. So I knew that when we first opened, we had Cannonball, and Tevis is great, and they were the first people to open us, but we had to clear that because at the time Sam Ash was a Cannonball dealer, and they had to clear with the Sam Ash here that they would allow us to have Cannonball, and that's fine. And so we did that, and that was our only dealer when we first opened was Cannonball for instruments. And when we started talking about doing rentals, it was like, golly, I mean, like we got to have something that we can do something else with. We got to have more than one.
Because they didn't have all the instruments
at the time.
For that.
Yeah. So I turned around and I found out who was the Yamaha rep at the time, and I literally put a marker on my phone that I called him every 2 weeks for a year and a half.
Oh my God!
And just said, "Hey, just want to let you know, if it was a message, if it was an email, like I did something every 2 weeks for a year and a half." And I think I might have wore them down a good bit, because they finally, we were our 4th year into business and doing trying to get into the rental thing. And we acquired a Yamaha dealership at that point in time. And we did solely Yamaha for our rentals. And that's still a large portion of what we do is the Yamaha rentals fully. And that was a huge portion of kind of our success right off the bat, was to have a company like Yamaha and the name like Yamaha for us to be able to present that to the directors for our own rental fleet was huge. So that's been it
was so scary though, because we made that pivot like late spring of 2019 to decide that we were going to do our own rental fleet in 2019, like that season.
Yeah.
So because Lyndon met with them in NAM of 2019, and then it was a couple months later that they came to the shop and kind of did a store visit, and they were like, all right, let's do this. But what's your rental fleet going to look like? It was like, okay. And so that whole summer, it was like, what's going to happen? So we had 2019 as our first like baby summer. And then of course, 2020, nobody rented anything.
Right.
So he had just financed this huge rental fleet that was now just sitting. And so it was like a little bit terrifying And so we still feel like we're kind of babies at this whole thing because we sort of had this little bitty year and then we had nothing. And then now we're only a couple years out from 2020 at this point. And so every year still feels like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
How many, and trying to predict the growth and what's going to come back. And because it was a brand new fleet. And
we all struggle with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So,
That's a challenge for all of us.
In going back to the financing side, we're very fortunate that my father was a small business owner. I worked for my father growing up. He was a fuel distributor in Northwest Indiana, Mobile, Texaco, Penn, all that type of stuff. That was where I worked for him growing up and did all the stuff and whatever. And when my dad sold the business, he did well. And my dad has been the biggest advocate for us and the biggest support for us moving forward, because he sees the vision and he sees what we're doing. And so a lot of our financing, because banks, I mean, I'll be honest, banks.
Well, our first one was
were
an
too
equipment
small.
loan. We got an equipment
We did
loan
get
for
the
the
first
first one, but it was pre-COVID. It seems like once the pandemic hit, like banks just don't want to loan to small businesses. It feels like we've kind of gone. We have a local bank that we've worked with the whole time, and they were the ones that gave us the equipment loan. And we were like, we'll be back next year for this. And then 2020 hit, and then 2021, they're like, we're just not really loaning to people anymore. And so we're fortunate that that his dad is kind of willing to step in and be the bank.
Yeah,
that, which has
Which
been
is helpful.
Huge.
Yeah.
And I
alternate funding.
can't thank him enough for what he's done to allow us to do that. And it's been a huge push for us to make sure that we remain successful, because I mean, let's be honest, we all want to make our parents proud.
Sure.
And the fact that he wants to even invest in what we're doing is meaningful beyond belief. But then have him turn around and be like, yeah, you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite comments he ever made was he used to go to clinics and things like that. And I told him that I reached out to you and threw an email and said, hey, I offered this guy cigars and bourbon and he's going to sit down with me. He's like, that's the best business decision you've ever made. Like,
he also likes cigars and bourbon.
Yeah. So, it all works out. But it's cool to have your parents that, really want to be there and support you and make those things happen too.
Yeah. I totally know what you mean. I kind of, my dad died in 2005, and he was always a big champion, of course, of mine and my success, and always challenged me and all that stuff. I always regret that he didn't get to see. I feel that he always believed that I would be successful. I should mention, for anyone who doesn't know, like, I grew up, my parents were divorced, grew up really poor and homeless for a while, not living on the streets homeless, but like living in someone else's house for several years, all through high school. And so it didn't come from money or success, but I had two loving parents. They hated each other, but they loved me, and they were very intelligent and charismatic and very, very supportive. But I wish that my dad could have seen the success that I've continued to have. Even I know that he believed that I would be able to do it. And my mother passed away not too long ago either, and she was able to kind of see some of that. I know that she was very proud of me. But now that my kids are growing up and they're getting involved in the business, I'm starting to become cognizant of that same feeling that you were just talking about how, like, you want to please your parents. You want to show them that you did good and you can, that you're doing a good job. And I see that with my oldest son, Caleb, who is working in the store in Springfield. He's one of our top salespeople in the company, definitely the top salesperson in that location. And Caleb is really unique. He's this blend between my wife and I. And I think when people first meet Caleb, I think they think he's a lot like me, but he's actually much more like my wife. And he's just learned some of my shtick, some of my things. Like, so my wife has got this bright, cheery personality, and she's absolutely beautiful and stunning to look at. I'm pretty sure she's in earshot.
Is she in the-
I would say those things even if she wasn't. She's absolutely wonderful, but she's got just this great personality, and she's a lot of fun, and she's kind of up for whatever and easygoing. And Caleb kind of has all of that. And I think that the people see me about kind of like being outgoing and having charisma and like a sense of humor. And with Caleb, like he has those qualities from both Belinda and I, and then the humor he's kind of picked up from a lifetime of being around me. And so he tries to kind of emulate that. But I don't see it as much as other people can see it, but I can see once it's shown to me, I can see that he's trying very hard to impress me and to impress us, and then also to do a good job and like build his own name. And I know that he feels a lot of pride working in a business that our family owns and that our family has developed a strong reputation for in our both in our local marketplace and our industry. And he feels a lot of pride and responsibility there. And so it's kind of interesting to see that shift when you're the child trying to please your parents, and then as you age and parents may pass away, kids grow up, how that mantle then kind of gets passed down to them, if you're lucky, passed down where they then have that feeling of they want to please you and make you proud as well. It's a weird thing for me to accept and to deal with, but yeah. So you guys are on the early cusp of that, with the oldest only being 13, but that's going to be coming for you before you know it. There'll come a point in time where your kids are going to be trying to please you in business, and we'll see how that goes. Is that a thing that you want them to do? Do you want them to follow in your footsteps and to carry the business forward? Are you like me, where you don't really care if they do?
I think it would be really cool if one of them decided that was what they wanted to do, but we're not going to groom them for that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thing. Like, our oldest wants to be an aerospace engineer. My grandfather worked for NASA.
Do that. That sounds
Right.
cool. And like there's a lot of zeros on that paycheck.
He very much has the intellect to like do that. And so I wouldn't want to like be like, no, sorry, you can't go work for NASA. You need to stay here.
Stay at Bandwagon. Yeah.
But if one of them decides that that's what they want to do, then I'd love for them to be in the business. I think it'd be really neat. But we're not gonna tell them that's what they have to do.
It was never forced on me with my dad and his business, and I appreciate that. I worked for him all through high school, middle school, college. I worked for him, but it was never like, hey, look, you're taking this over.
Yeah.
And the thing that I realized was that the training I got from my dad, working for my dad, is really what has helped us be successful in what we're doing. So even though I'm not working my dad's business, his business is still living on in me.
Yeah.
And so if that happens with our kids, if they go off and they want to be, I don't know, a beautician or a whatever, I don't know, like, great.
Dolly Parton.
I think it would be excellent.
Daughter wants to be Dolly Parton.
Well, who doesn't?
So
yeah, who doesn't?
Amen.
Exactly.
Yeah, those lessons of working hard, taking calculated risks, being smart, being financially prudent. Like there's times to swing for the fences. There's times to batten down the hatches. Those lessons can be applied to anything. I feel much the same way you guys do. Like having Caleb and now Maddox, our youngest, who's 16, he's also working some of the business. Having them in it has been very enjoyable. I've actually enjoyed it more than I thought that I would, even though I don't really work directly with either one of them, but just having them in there is fun. And when I constantly get feedback from other people, mostly about Caleb right now, because he's being in a sales role. He's very public facing. People see him. I get messages multiple times a month from people who have worked with Caleb, and they're like, I just gotta tell you, your kid's so great. Like, he's so fun, and and that always just makes you feel proud. And so I've enjoyed it more than I thought. But ultimately, I still even reiterate to them, like, hey, you guys make sure this is your life. Like, you do what you want to do. Don't do this because you feel like you have to do it for me or whatever. Like, live your dreams, do the things you want to do. Don't leave during or before rental season, but pursue your dreams once we get out of rental season, maybe.
Yeah.
And if they want to do it, great. And I'll, support and help. And I think it's a great thing to want to pursue if it's something you want to do. But if you'd rather do aerospace or something else, then absolutely go get it. So let's shift a little bit and talk about our industry here. I always kind of like to get people's thoughts on our music products industry. So as we look at the landscape right now, obviously things have kind of shifted quite a bit. in the last few years. This year, of the announcement of Sam Ash closing all of its doors. I guess now the latest news is there's a company in Mexico that's trying to buy samash.com, and they want to kind of develop into be kind of a rival to Sweetwater. But the challenge of brick and mortar has been a huge change. The pandemic has moved more and more shopping online, so it's kind of made it challenging. Tell me about what are some of the challenges you guys are observing in retail in general, and maybe even specifically with the music industry. What are you seeing out there?
So we've never had an online presence. It's kind of one of the things that we just don't have the bandwidth to do it. And it is something that we are toying with the idea of, is to get online to make some things happen. But we're working our way towards that. We just want to have the bandwidth to be able to handle it and do it right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to half-ass anything. I want to do it right. And so for me, on the industry side, it's good and bad. You can have a customer come in and you don't have the exact product that they want. And it is so easy just to push the button now.
Yeah.
And pushing the button is, and it shows up at your front door. And when you use the knowledge base that we have to then go and push the button somewhere else, that's the push for me to be like, okay, we got to have something online.
Yeah.
I want them to push my button,
right?
Not someone else's button.
Right.
So yeah, exactly. Call me a Pillsbury.
Yeah.
I think that the industry is definitely changing. We have to adapt. We have to get there. But at the same token, we're only 8 years old. And so we're still trying to get all this stuff figured out.
Yeah.
Like in the first place.
We're only 8 years old. I'm
right,
only 8.
We're in second grade now.
Yeah.
You can get left with a babysitter and you're mostly independent, but
Right.
also you still need a lot of help in life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You can't make a PB&J without making a mess. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
For
right.
sure.
So, I can, for me, the online side is definitely a huge push. And I think that is, industry wide. People are really taking to the online side. They see the button pushing there. The one thing that I can say for both of us industry wide is that the education that is put forth, and I think I've said this before in this podcast even, like we both went to music education conferences. We both went to Midwest. I went to, all that type of, you name it. I've been to the education conference.
Mm-hmm.
None of it holds a candle to the education that NAMM puts forward as far as like the day before NAMM with the full day sessions.
The boot camp.
The boot camp days and the idea centers and the continual education they do throughout the year. I'm curious what's going to happen with NAMM Next coming up next week.
Yeah.
We're going to it and we're excited to go to it. I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm excited to see what happens. I hope we walk away with a million ideas and then we can't get to any of them because we have a million already in the hopper.
Right.
But, I think the one thing this industry and the NAMM organization has and NASMD has and some of the other groups that are out there, that the education and the moving forward and the commitment to pushing us is huge. And you can either take it or leave it. Like that's the one thing for both of us that I think we have turned around and just said, we're going to take it.
Mm-hmm.
And we go to everything that we can, because we need to learn more. And if you're not learning, you're not growing.
Yeah.
And I think to tag on to that, part of being a brick and mortar, a lot of what we really focus on is we need to create experiences that people can't have online. Like if you just walk in, buy a pack of guitar strings and leave, you could have done that.
Mm-hmm.
You could have pushed a button for that. If we can provide something, either an atmosphere or education or service that you couldn't have gotten with a button, then we're doing our job well. Whoop! It just fell out of my ear.
Just lost the earbud.
Just lost it. And so a lot of that education is kind of staying relevant. A lot of everybody's talking about AI right now, and a lot of pieces that so we've incorporated that. It maybe isn't forward facing to customers as much, but just doing a better job of what we're doing and ways to do that. I think trend wise, we are always, even now, sort of seeing that push back to like people are tired of being online.
Mhm.
You know, there was pandemic, oh, everybody can just take lessons on Zoom. So some people pivoted to Zoom with their teacher that was from the store, but also some people just like started watching YouTube videos and whatever.
Mhm.
And I think we are seeing more of like people are over that. They're like done with sitting in front of a screen, you know, real people matter. And so if we can be real people that are well educated in our field, that can bring them something that they can't get otherwise, and just sort of that human touch. So that for us is a big deal. Like, you've been in our shop. It's not white. It's not blank and
Mhm.
normal looking. Like, it just feels
A lot of
different. And
orange.
that's
A lot of orange. Yeah.
Love
Not UT orange,
No.
just orange.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But that rustic, like bringing in the wood, like the pew benches for people to sit on while they're waiting, like we wanted it to feel different and homey or comfortable, or
Yeah.
know, so that it doesn't, it feels like a place. It feels like you've gone somewhere and done something. And so I think that's kind of our way of staying relevant in some ways.
Yeah.
Is bringing people something they can't get
We
elsewhere.
definitely can't surpass the convenience of online shopping. Like,
No.
and I would slightly disagree. I don't think people are tired of screens in general. I think like it's very convenient that it's always at your fingertips. It's in your pocket. Like you can it's just so easy, and there's such an enormous amount of content. What I think people are missing is the connection. And
Yes.
a lot of times in the music products industry and music performance and learning to play a musical instrument, what we need is that relationship and connection. We need someone. I mean, a perfect example is just think about lessons. Like, so in addition to playing music, I also like to golf. And I've played golf for technically 20 years. I took about 10 years off. So maybe like roughly 10 years. And you'd think after 10 years of playing golf, and my wife and I both play now, we play quite a bit. You think I'd be pretty good. You'd be absolutely wrong. I'm horrible at it. And I've taken a few lessons and stuff like that. And I'll watch videos on YouTube about things like that. But the problem is I don't know enough about what I'm doing wrong to be able to watch a video and fix it. I can just fill my head with a bunch of random stuff that makes sense for that golfer maybe, but doesn't make sense for this golfer. Whereas when I take a lesson with someone, which I when I do take lessons, I take with someone here in town, Sean Saunders does a really great job with it. I'm always amazed, like almost immediately he's like, yep, I see what you're doing, like, and can just fix it, because that's what's missing. Same thing like when I work with people, if they come into the store and they want to look at trumpet mouthpieces, for example, or if people contact me because they want to buy an electric bass, like if I can see them play, I can see like, I can see what you're doing wrong. I can see what equipment you should actually look at that will help you. You don't know. You were reading specs online and reading all the marketing, the specs that the marketing departments wrote about this mouthpiece or whatever. And so you bought this mouthpiece that's wholly inappropriate really for your musculature or your ability or what you're trying to achieve. And you're struggling. And so I can guide you that way. And that's a thing that needs that interaction between people. And so I think if we can provide a clean, comfortable, inviting space to do that with, it's great if the space is also interesting, and like if there's some experience to the space itself is helpful, not required, but very, very helpful. But the main thing is the human connection. Is just, you got to have knowledgeable people that make it worth. I always say it's got to be worth like putting on pants and driving across town to come do it, and I think that's such a critical thing.
Should that be our tagline? Bandwagon, worth putting on pants.
Yeah,
for.
Worth putting on the pants for. Yeah. You mentioned something else. I want to just talk about it briefly. So NAMM Next. This is a bold initiative that NAMM is putting on, and I think many of us, especially those of us that have a lot of appreciation for NAMM, sometimes we don't like to speak out publicly against them, because some people seem to love throwing rocks at NAMM. I don't. I am grateful for them, just like you guys are. I've learned so much through the organization and the things that they've provided through friendships and relationships, and then all the educational stuff. Like I just have nothing but gratitude for our trade organization, and really by and large think they just do a great job. But this NAMM Next thing has definitely, like, people have got mixed feelings about that. And
for sure,
for me, what it feels like is, we've seen over the last couple of years, NAMM not pivoting away from music retailers, but broadening the umbrella, broadening the tent to be more inclusive of other music entities beyond just those of us who sell music products. And
Sure.
on the one hand, like, oh, that sounds good, like be very inclusive and all that kind of stuff. But on the other hand, this almost falls into some social commentary here, maybe. I'm used to the one being catered to.
Make me feel pretty.
Yeah. And as a middle-aged white male and as a music retailer, I'm used to being the one that everyone's catering to. And
Yes.
as that starts to change, sometimes you can feel a little bit like, but I liked the way it was, you know. And with NAMM Next, as I look at what they're offering, to be clear, I'm very supportive of all things being inclusive and other stuff socially or whatever. But as I look at the offerings for NAMM Next, I really feel like I can't help but feel like I don't think it doesn't seem like it's for me. You know, while I respect admire what Damon Johns has put together, not really interested. I don't think I'm going to hear anything in an hour-long presentation from a guy from Shark Tank that's going to like change my business. And most of the other people, like, I just don't know that it's worth the cost, time, the expense to go do it, but I'm eager to see, you know, what's happening. I know you guys are going, you live in Nashville, so like might
That's
as
where we're
well,
going.
like, you know,
We
let's
can still sleep in our bed.
yeah,
Right.
you can do that. But I know there's a lot of folks that are kind of taking a wait and see attitude, and I definitely applaud NAMM for like they're trying something new and different, and I'm very eager to see how that goes. To me, it doesn't feel like it's the right move for what I would have wanted. I would have wanted something with more educational stuff, again, maybe specifically catered to music retail and business and stuff like that, which I get that they're branching out from that. But the networking, I think that's such a huge value for NAMM that's probably the one area that they could probably do a stronger job with, is more networking opportunities that they are fostering. It happens at those things, but it's not usually something that they've put together. It's just a thing that happens because you're at the trade show. But I'm eager to hear how that NAMM next turns out. Yeah. I hope it's successful because I want nothing but success for all of our friends at NAMM and things like that. But I'm definitely curious. I'm going to be curious to see what people say.
We're thrilled that something's coming to Nashville because nothing's been here since 21.
It's true.
And you know, because we're a band focused store, the Nashville NAMM, which was heavy in guitars and pro audios for the most part, the actual trade show part of it was not always super helpful for us. But the education side of it was amazing. I mean, I feel like I have a whole nother marketing degree from going to NAMM events over the years.
Same.
Day-long conferences on social media and algorithms and all the things. But so we're thrilled it's coming. I'm with you. I really appreciate their idea of like an education-focused event. Like, I think it'll be neat to have an event where there's not exhibits, where it feels more like, hey, we're all here to learn, we're all here to grow together and mix and mingle and share stories and all the things. I hope that in the future it is a little bit more accessible. It's only accessible to us because we're here and because we don't have to pay for the hotel and we don't have a flight, and we know, can probably Uber downtown if we need to, because parking's ridiculous also.
Right.
But
so
I think it'll be interesting. I'm excited that we get the chance to go and see it firsthand. And there's only supposed to be about 200 people. So I was thinking about that the other day. Like, if we don't know everybody, we will by the time we leave.
Yeah, you will. Yeah. And the 200 includes the speakers too. Like, it's a small, which makes me wonder if that was the number they were looking for. I feel like they were expecting something bigger, but we'll see.
They always just said, we're hoping for it to be sold out. Nobody seems to know
we don't know what that means.
Number was. So
it's going to be interesting. I think as like folks like you come back afterwards, like obviously I'm going to be connecting with you right after, like, all right, what'd you think?
Right.
We may not record it. We'll have to see how that goes. But like, I'm eager to hear the feedback, because I've got other friends that I know are going, that they specifically are going just for the networking. Some of them have specifically said like they're kind of going for the kind of the brown nose effect. Like, they have aspirations of being on the NAMM board someday, so they just want to like be there for that. They're not even really interested in the event itself so much. There are some people that of course are interested in the topics and the speakers, so they want to go. So it's going to be very interesting. And I think because we love our industry and love our trade organization, if it's a success and worthwhile and should be repeated, we definitely want to share that story. if it's not a successful or a failure, I think it's okay to call that out. We can give them credit for trying something new, and we don't
Yep.
want to like tell them not to take risks and try new things. We just talked about how taking calculated risks is an
we do
important
that
part.
in our own business.
Yes, exactly.
They're doing it in their business. I get it.
But they need that feedback too. And if it was a big success, they need to know that. But if it was a swing and a miss, they need to know it, and anything in between. So I'm going to be really eager to see that for sure. So one other thing, it doesn't have to be said. I just want to say it because you said it, and it made me realize how accurate this is. You're right. I too have been to a lot of other conferences, for music conferences like Midwest, and leaving today to go to Kansas Bandmasters and Missouri Music Educators, Kansas Music Educators, Oklahoma Music. I mean, I've gone to all these conferences, and when you go to music education conferences, they really just don't hold a candle in terms of the quality of education of what we get at through NAMM. And we should mention, it's what NAMM is doing only is providing the platform, the space, and they're kind of curating the content, but it's the content is brought by people like ourselves. Like we present at these things. They will sometimes bring in marketing experts or other outside actual experts that don't just do it. But it's many of the folks that are in our industry that are presenting this content. And I think all of us, because we're standing up in front of our peers, not only want to do a good job, but I know for myself in particular, I always feel like I need to deliver on the promise that my session title has promised, whatever promise I've made. Come and learn how to make your lesson program more profitable, how to be more organized, whatever it is. Like in my mind, I got to make sure that when someone leaves here, they feel like, yep, I got the things right here that I can do to go put into place and that are actionable. And it's a thing that we do really quite well in our industry. The fact that we're willing to share, the fact that other people are willing to say, I've been successful with this here, dear competitor, here's how you do it. That's so unique to us. And I think in music education, there's a willingness to share, but I think sometimes it's lacking the bullet points of here's what you do, here's how the best way to start your beginning brass players, step 1, step 2. We're missing some of and it gets into sort of the platitudes and generalities and stuff like that. But our industry just does a really, really great job with the education side of it. And if it's an extremely affordable and fun way to get an MBA in the music business is by just going to NAMM and going to these sessions. Absolutely. And 100%. Reaching out. And so I kind of want to close with this last thing. Let's talk about the value of mentorship / friendship, reaching out and creating industry friends. When you first start, of course, like all of us, we don't know anybody, and you go to these big events, and it seems like there's a lot of cliques there. There's a lot of people that they all kind of know each other, and they only see each other once or twice a year, and they kind of get together. I know when I first came in, I felt like an outsider. I, felt like, man, I've never felt so alone as the first time I went to a NAMM show by myself. 100,000 people in this convention center, and I'm all alone. It's the loneliest feeling in the world. Fast forward a few years, and now I've got so many great friendships and relationships, and I look forward to going, not just to see the products. The products are actually the things I'm least interested in when I go to the NAMM show, strangely enough. I mean, I like to see it, but it's not the driving force. But the educational stuff, and most importantly, seeing friends and people like that, make it really enjoyable. Tell me about how you guys kind of brought and developed those relationships to going from just kind of isolated in Nashville, we don't know anybody, to the value you've had of having a group of friends that will take a week off for their summer to come visit you, to look at your business and offer suggestions. Talk to us about that.
So we came to this really from the Nappert side. Being a repair place,
National Association of Professional Band Instrument Repair Technicians, for those who are not school music folks.
So, up on Nappert.
Yeah.
So I did the national convention before we even started. I went up to Maryland and did all that and had a great time. And I've done so I made a lot of great connections through the repair industry. And I find that a lot of the repair industry is very much so like the music owner industry, and that I mean, I've got a lot of really great friends across the country in the repair industry that are repair techs or repair tech owners or things like that, that I can call up and be like, hey, look, can you help me out with this? I got questions. Or, and they were very open and available to me, which was really cool. And as much as I may seem extroverted, I am kind of introverted. I like to be me. But when you go to these events, I have found that you have to be the person that is extroverted. You have to be the person that walks up to, oh gosh, I saw that person I listened to their podcast, or I know who this person is, or I read the article about them, and
I went to their session. Yeah.
I went to their session or whatever. And it's kind of like, celebrities that kind of, in a way, when you're first starting, but they're just people. I think that's one thing that Nashville has also taught me, in that you may be whoever, but you're just a person in the end. And people like to be treated like people. And if you're a good person, people are going to want to talk to you and be, have communication with you. And that's one thing that I really strive to be when we go to these events and go to things where we can turn around and I'm going to really try to meet out with 2 or 3 people and talk with them or whatever. What's really crazy is now I have people doing that to me.
Yeah.
And that freaks me out a little bit, because I'm like, no. You see, you guys, I'm still learning over here.
Yeah.
I'm still doing all this.
I feel this implicitly. I totally know what you mean. Yeah. I feel the exact same way. Yeah.
And I appreciate that a ton, that some people can confide in me and have seen us and our successes and have gone, I want to do what they're doing, which is really cool. But also I want to still keep going forward as well.
I think for me, it's, we have gained so much insight about our own business and our own selves by meeting with other people, by building relationships with other owners. It felt so, you talk about being the only person in the sea of 100,000 people and being so lonely. It felt like we made up this island that we were living on. And we're like, what are we doing? Like, we have no idea. And to feel like, oh, there's other people that do this. There's even other families that do this. Like, I'm not the only mom who's trying to raise a family and run a music store at the same time. One of few. It's not a big number, but there are other people out there, and it's so, on the one hand, it's like just so encouraging to know that there's other people who are waking up every day dealing with that customer or dealing with that dealer or getting excited over this thing or, whatever. There's like, or trying to struggle with the new update of this thing, or figuring out how lessons is going to work and where you're going to put all the rentals in the middle of August. And, we're not the only people who are pulling our hair out in the middle of August. Yeah. It's a whole thing. Like, rental season is a thing in multiple places. Not just a made up thing.
We're all experiencing
in the middle of our shop.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that was a big deal. But I think for me, NAMM is amazing, and I got so much education from all the NAMM events. But our first NASMD was, I think, a big turning point for me, because it literally just sat us at tables, like you eat together. And that's a big, and so it was just a matter of introducing ourselves. They do
a couple of things, just for anyone who hasn't been recently, they do a couple of things. They do like a dinner and a lunch thing where they intentionally like split you up. So,
different cards,
it doesn't matter that you came from the same company. Like, all right, we're going to put you with other people, so you're forced to meet other people.
And at Top 100, they do that at NAMM, like when you're sitting together at a table and you kind of get to know people if you didn't sit with people But it just became a matter of like introducing ourselves, of, hey, where are you from? What are you doing? Which I think we kind of normally did anyway. I would say, I'm absolutely not an extrovert. That confuses my mom because I'm an outgoing introvert. She's like, you must be an extrovert, but I'm not. But just kind of putting yourself out there, which can be scary, but also if you've started a music store and you have no idea what you're doing and you have to say hello to every customer that walks in the door. Might as well just introduce yourself to the person across the table.
Right. Yeah.
And I think just being open and being genuine and, getting to know people. I remember sitting down with Katie from the music shop at our first NESMD here in Nashville, when it was that one day random thing right before NAMM.
Yeah.
And we had never been to an NASMD event. And I just remember kind of connecting with her, and it was like, huh, cool.
Yeah.
There's other people in this world who kind of do similar things, who like we can have conversations with. And she asked us questions about what we did, and it was like, oh, you can learn stuff from us too. Who knew?
Yeah.
You know, because we all do things differently. And I think the relationship part of it is absolutely one of the sweetest pieces of it at this point. Don't make me cry, because I will, you know. But it's changed our business for the better in so many ways.
I love the fact that anywhere we travel now, I feel like we have friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can contact anywhere we go. And that's part of what we do. If we travel, we're going to music stores.
Yep.
And we're going to go
Like it or not.
visit
Yeah.
the place.
Go
Like,
visit a music
and our
store.
kids
That's right.
have gotten used to it now. And you want to go in and see and talk. And we've created good relationships, even with people that we didn't have relationships with. When you just go in and say, hey, you know, we'd love to see the place. We own a place down in Nashville. We'd love to, and how open. We have yet to have someone say no.
Right.
Yeah,
And
there's
I
that
don't-
one curmudgeon.
Yeah, but we've
Don't be the curmudgeon.
but
Right.
people are. That's one thing I love about this industry is like they all know where we all are.
Mm-hmm.
We all are working towards the same goal. We're all working towards keeping people in music and making lifelong musicians and moving that forward. And you know what? If you pick up something from walking through my location, great. If you don't, great. If you pick up things that you shouldn't do, great. Like, you know, it's excellent that, you know, how awesome it is for us to move forward that way in the industry and the friends that we've made and the contacts we've made. It's so powerful, loving,
Yep.
hugging. It feels like, I always feel like we're getting a hug somewhere that we go.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's not, obviously you get the benefits of just like, you get to learn from these people that you get to meet from, and they can help you answer questions and deal with challenges, help you think through opportunities that you have. And you guys, our friend group has helped you guys do that over the last year of thinking about, should we expand in this additional retail space? How are we going to deal with this challenge? What are our opportunities here? Having all that is like unbelievably useful. It's like having a board of directors that you can go to for stuff. But man, the relationships and the friendships of it are just what adds to the richness of it, you know, and it just makes it just so much more enjoyable. It's more than just business and business success. There's just the camaraderie and the friendship just makes it so enjoyable. And all you got to do is just reach out. And I'll be honest, not everyone will be receptive to reaching out. I reach out to folks all the time, and some folks are eager, like, oh, absolutely, like we'd love to have you come out, or we'd love to show you around, or we'd love to have this conversation, or whatever. Other people just aren't as interested in it. I don't know if it's maybe they're insecure or they're over secure, like, you know, I don't know if it's their ego out of check or whatever, but most people are very receptive to it. And then some people are willing to share, and they're just kind of like sort of jerks about it all at the same time. Got one person in mind. I won't say. They were willing to like show around, but they wanted to more show off than share off, you know, and sometimes you're going to run into those too. But by and large, most people, I would say north of 80% of the people that I've tried to engage with and learn from or share something through have been very receptive to it. And it's been an experience that I come out of it feeling like, oh, I got something out of this. Like, this was very, very useful. And so I think just take that initiative. If you're listening to this and you're one of those people that, you know, or you think of yourself as an introvert, recognize all of that is just a continuum, and you can add energy and become an extrovert, and you can pull your energy back. And we all kind of run this line between introvert and extrovert, so it's totally fine. But just put on your big girl panties and like reach out and ask someone like, hey, you want to meet for some bourbon and let's talk about this thing, or a glass of wine, or a cup of coffee.
This is our open invitation that if you're listening, you are always welcome to Nashville. We will buy you a hot chicken.
Yes.
We'll get you hot
Hot
chicken.
chicken,
We got
yes.
a great deck.
Yes.
We'll make it happen.
Yeah. But just take the initiative to do it. And, you know, I mean, people will be willing to help. I remember years ago, Rick Thacker from Plum Grove Music reached out to me, and he was like, hey, I want to talk to you about lessons, and we're going to be at the NAMM show together. Could I take you to lunch? And I was like, sure. Not only that, like I'll have my lesson, our music administrator with me, so we can bring her too. And Misty Christek is a huge resource for this. Like she can answer so many questions. And so he's like, all right. And so we met at Nashville. We were like, all right, we're going to go to lunch on this day. I think it was like a Friday or whatever. And he's like, I'll handle the Uber. I'll cover lunch and everything. I appreciate you guys like, making the time. Like, oh, okay, cool. That's fine. And so it's him, his wife, his sister, and me and Misty. And he calls the Uber, and he didn't get like an Uber XL or anything like that. He just got an Uber. And I'm pretty sure a 1997 Ford Escort pulls up. And I'm looking at this like, how is this going to work? Because I'm a beefy boy, so I got the front seat. Yeah, I got the front seat. And somehow it was me in the front seat, the driver, obviously, and then the four of them in the back of this like compact car heading 15 minutes away to an In-N-Out, like not even the closest In-N-Out. For some reason, he picked one accidentally picked one further away. And I was like, oh my, I'll never forget this. This is an experience I'll never forget. And there's a rattle trap of a car. We weren't sure we're going to make it there safely. But we had so much fun, and it was so like I know they were so appreciative of Misty sharing like her thoughts and experience and stuff like that. Those kind of things, people are just happy to do it. And anyone who's spent the blood, sweat, and tears and time of learning a lesson is generally happy to share it with someone else, to recount the successes and trials and tribulations. So if you're out there, don't sit there and think of yourself being too precious by being crippled with anxiety that you couldn't possibly send an email to someone or go up to someone that you just saw them present at a session. Be bold, go up there, introduce yourself, tell them what it is that if you'd like help for something, and you'll be surprised about the number of people that'll take you up on that. I did that with George Hines years ago. He was one of my first mentors from George's music, and especially during that era, that the mid 2000s. George's music was one. I mean, they still are one of the big players in our industry, but at that point, like he was all over the trade magazines, like he was a big deal, and he spoke at NAMM, and I remember afterwards going up to him and just like basically just sort of fanboying like all over him, just telling him like, how oh my God, I read everything that you're in, all the trade magazines, I read every interview you're in, I'm at every session you do, like, is there any way that you'd be willing to like, could I like ask you some questions outside of this? And he said, sure. He gave me his email address, and I emailed him, and I gave him like this list of questions, and he was like, call me. And so we arranged time for me to call. And I remember, I'll never forget that he was like, I'm looking through these lists of things that you're asking, and there's quite a bit going on here. There's more than we're gonna be able to handle this phone call. I will agree to mentor you on these things. And I will never forget that phrasing, because I didn't ask for him, will you mentor me? I just was asking questions. But him saying, I will be a mentor for you, like I was blown away by that, because like that meant I have more access. It isn't just this one time, like I can follow up again. And whether it's him or Chip Averwater, I mean, there's just been so many people that have been big figures in my life that have made success for me more possible. Man, I can't get on that bandwagon enough to encourage everyone else to reach out and do that. So for those who want to reach out to you guys, what's a good email address for them to find you?
Lyndon, Linden, at bandwagonmusicandrepair.com.
Spell it all out.
Yep.
And I'm Jennifer at bandwagonmusicandrepair.com.
Love it. Yep. So I encourage everyone to reach out to you and build those relationships. You guys are so much fun. Such good business owners, but also just such great people, and a super fun time to hang out with. So I promise that you won't regret it. It helps if you like bourbon, but you don't have to be a bourbon person. If you're not, we'll accept that too. Yeah, it's fine.
We can still have fun.
All right. Well, thanks, friends. I appreciate your time today. This is really enjoyable. And
thank you as well.
Wish you guys continued success.